Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
In beautiful Monrovia, California. See, Brady, it's there again. I don't know how. This is the Harris Highlight Show. I don't know. It's not even saved. Joining us this week is our college football analyst and expert, Lyle Goldstein, our executive producer and proposal photographer, Brady Klain. I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Josh Schaefer will potentially join us at some point later in the show. If not,
from a remote location,
then he's off the show. Gentlemen, how we doing this week for I guess it's technically for a lot of schools hate week, so screw you guys.
Don't we all root for the same school?
That is true, but it's still hate week for someone, so.
Blake Harris is known for lying to his followers.
Go for a cookie, but unfortunately I'm on a diet.
Did Blake really say that Josh Rosen has a top 5 football IQ and Oregon will make the playoffs?
Not only is Oregon going to be in the college football playoff, they're going to go undefeated.
A Lyle Goldstein-led Harris Highlights Show would never do these things.
I'm Lyle Goldstein, and I approve this message.
So I don't know what just...
Happy Hate Week.
So there you go. That's been sitting in the archives for a year or so.
I forgot those existed. And also Brady just sending the show off the rails like 2 minutes in for Thanksgiving.
Hey, it happens to the best of us.
Lyle Goldstein really thought that Washington was better than USC in 2016.
UW got outplayed. I still think they're the better team.
Does Lyle really support shooting animals and think Pistol Pete would win in a college football mascot battle?
Pistol Pete, baby.
Oh my
Pistol Pete. You guys are talking about a bunch of animals and humans here, but they would get shot.
College football fans deserve a better highlight show. A Schaefer highlight show.
I'm Josh Schaefer, and I approve this message.
Yeah, so I don't know if Brady made one. I don't know if there's one for Brady, endorsing Brady, because that's not saved in here. So those two videos from way back in the day were fantastic.
We did one for Josh, too.
Yeah, I forget. It was something like that, but boy, yeah, I don't even know if we answered the question. How's everyone?
So, hey, here we go.
How's everyone doing? People are loving the videos right here.
Doing well. Ready for Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday of the year, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, it's a good one. An interesting debate I saw on Twitter earlier. I want to get your guys' thoughts before we move on to some playoff talk. What, in your guys' mind, is the ideal time, the correct time to begin your Thanksgiving Day feast? Because I have one that is, I guess, questionable. Not really a hot take, but an interesting time that we have our Thanksgiving feast.
I guarantee you Blake's is like 2:30 in the afternoon.
We usually eat about 2 to 2:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, no. Somebody on this show was crazy last year. They're like, yeah, we eat at like 6, 7 o'clock for. Oh, so that was you. No, people eat at like 3 o'clock for Thanksgiving dinner. That's the normal time, I'm pretty sure, to eat on Thanksgiving.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was more like a early afternoon kind of like brunch kind of ordeal, but apparently people actually have like a dinner.
We eat in between the second and third game usually, so it's 6:30 to 7, somewhere in that time frame.
Right.
So, but we hang out during the day. We don't have a big Thanksgiving, like we don't have a lot of people coming over this year, at least. So,
yeah,
we're just taking it easy. We're eating at, I think, 6:30 tomorrow. So I'm all in for the later, because turkey makes you tired and you just want to go straight to bed after. And the last thing you want to do is go to bed at 5.
Well, but the post-Thanksgiving nap is a tradition. I'm pretty sure like half the world does that or whatever
That's a really good point.
And,
it does hit different though, doesn't it?
It does. And I'm looking it up on a quick Google search right now. It says most people said they try and sit down between 1 and 3 p.m. for Thanksgiving dinner. I don't know.
It's why they call it a Thanksgiving feast, not Thanksgiving dinner, because that's lunch.
Well, true.
Who knows? But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. I remember, Brady had that 6 o'clock take. I just wanted to hear what people thought, what's the ideal time. But guys, let's get some playoff discussion underway. So here's the latest playoff rankings. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the best that the committee's done, I think, all year. No complaints. So no need to really go in depth on, Cincinnati being here, this team being here. Because again, at the end of the day, it's all going to play itself out. So that doesn't necessarily matter. But one thing that does matter, and that's something I want to get to, is hypothetical playoff scenarios. Because at this point, coming into the final week of the season, barring some absolute massive upset this weekend when they're playing Georgia Tech, Georgia's guaranteed to be in. They're one of the one of the teams guaranteed to be one of the 4 teams. And aside from that, there are no guarantees at this point. Usually by now we have maybe like 2, maybe kind of 3. But for the most part, this is all up in the air. So again, we all know that my favorite thing to talk about is hypothetical scenarios. I love it more than anything. And I sent this to the group text, I think it was yesterday or maybe even today, saying all of a sudden, low key, Notre Dame has a strong chance of making it in. Looking at this, a team like Oklahoma State or Baylor, they have a chance to make it in. So guys, without further ado, let's go over some hypothetical scenarios. Lyle, I'm going to throw it to you to kick this one off because, again, this is the most fun one in my opinion because we've kind of talked about Notre Dame all season, being a good team, but not being good enough to reach the college football playoff. And quietly, aside from that one loss to number 4 Cincinnati, they've won out. They've won every game they've needed to. Now, all of a sudden, they're sitting at number 6 in the country. So I know you said you don't think Notre Dame's good enough to be a playoff team. You think whoever they play in the first game, they'll just be bounced probably by Georgia. But looking at this, what do you think has to happen in order for your Irish to be one of the 4 teams to reach the college football playoff?
First and foremost, one of those Big Ten teams has to lose, which they will next week. Either Ohio State's going to lose or Michigan's going to lose. It's almost definitely going to be Michigan. So that would move Notre Dame up 1 spot. And then after that, either Cincinnati or Alabama would have to lose. So they're going to need help from 2 teams in front of them. They're going to get at least 1 guaranteed. And then their best shot is probably for Alabama to lose to Georgia in the SEC title game. That's another conversation in itself about what happens to Bama. But that's Notre Dame's path, I think, is you need one of the Big Ten teams to lose, which they will, and then 1 additional team.
Brady, what are your thoughts on this? Again, how we've talked about all these teams being potential playoff teams, and we kind of just, Notre Dame, they have a chance, just thinking, no, they don't. But all of a sudden, there's a lot has to go their way. They, don't really control their own destiny at this point, but they're going to beat Stanford this week. They don't have a conference championship to play in, but do you think there's a realistic chance based on seeing what's in front of them that Notre Dame can somehow end up in the playoff after the season they've had?
I think what Lyle said there a minute ago nailed it. It's one of these teams are going to lose, 2 of the top 5 teams are going to lose this week, guaranteed. So we're going to see Yeah. Yeah. So what we're going to see is, I mean, at least Michigan or Ohio State, I think it's going to come down between those two. So it's really, really tough. I don't see a way, and I think the one thing that will come back to bite Notre Dame is not being in a conference championship. I think for them sitting at 4, I don't know why. I don't know how, but like say Oklahoma State somehow finds their way up and in front and can somehow make it to the conference championship and win a conference championship, I think that propels them to Notre Dame. I think that makes them jump Notre Dame. I do think even with a loss, say this week, I think Georgia's in, and I think they're the only one that's basically locked and loaded at this point.
Yeah, well,
other than that, I think you can go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to cut you off. What I was going to say, just adding on to your point, is that's the other part of this equation is if Oklahoma State goes out and wins 2 in a row pretty convincingly, all of a sudden they just won a conference, played an extra game, Notre Dame doesn't, they could easily jump Notre Dame at the end of this. And that may happen. Even if Notre Dame's hypothetically sitting at 4 going into conference championship week, I mean, if Oklahoma State comes out and they win 2 in a row, both in Bedlam and then in the Big 12 championship, I mean, they're going to have a real case, and they may jump Notre Dame in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to some fun hypotheticals now, because guys, looking at this, the first one I want to do is Alabama, because they're likely going to beat Auburn this weekend, and it's going to be Alabama versus Georgia in the SEC title game. This one's pretty straightforward. If Alabama beats Georgia, both Alabama and Georgia are going to be in. There's going to be 2 SEC teams, and things might get a little complicated based on how things play out. But if Alabama were to lose to Georgia, we would assume that Bama would be knocked out. Again, a lot can happen. But let's say Alabama loses to Georgia and that knocks them out of the playoff hunt. Let's say Ohio State takes care of business. Let's say Cincinnati takes care of business. Michigan, they're going to be gone in this situation. You're going to have Notre Dame, and you're going to have, let's say, Oklahoma State beats Baylor. Who do you think is going to be the top 4 in that situation that I just rattled off?
You need to write these down or put these on the graphic.
I know.
I just lost that.
All I need is one more time. Who are the 3 teams that are locked in before?
So it would be pretty much, assuming everything goes to plan, it would be Georgia, Ohio State. Let's say those 2 are like the top 2 locked and loaded since they're 1 and 2. Alabama loses. Cincinnati wins out. Notre Dame wins this weekend. And Oklahoma State, they win against Oklahoma this weekend. And then Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 title game.
Okay, so the 3rd team that would be locked in would be Cincinnati because they'd be undefeated.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that they'd be a 100% locked in one? Or do you think the committee, there's any chance they get cute where if Cincinnati struggles to beat, I don't know, SMU in the American title game, if Alabama loses to Georgia by like a field goal or something, do you think there's any way they get cute, or you think Cincinnati at that point might be locked and loaded? Because I don't think it's 100% guaranteed the way we've seen it.
I guess you can't count it out because who knows what the committee thinks these days. But I will say, if they knock Cincinnati out after an undefeated season, after where we currently stand, they are in. If the season ended today, they are in. And oh, by the way, they put Notre Dame in instead when they not only have 1 loss, but have 1 loss to undefeated Cincinnati. I think that would be a pretty tough look for the committee. So if Cincinnati's undefeated, I would have to assume they're locked in. So in that situation, look, this Alabama debate deserves some conversation and probably a little bit of in-depth conversation, because what this comes down to is, what do you believe? Do you believe that the games have to matter and there has to be precedent for winning your conference? Or do you believe just get the best 4 teams in and put the teams in that you truly believe have the best chance to win a national title and give you the best games? Because even if Alabama loses to Georgia, unless they lose by 3 touchdowns, I would personally rather have them in because I believe they are the 3rd best team in college football. The problem is if you're a 2-loss non-conference champion, that's hard to validate as the committee when you've got teams that have done more on their resume. I think Alabama would absolutely give Ohio State a much better game than Cincinnati, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, and pretty much all the teams fighting for that last spot. But it's going to be really hard to justify Alabama getting in with 2 losses. So if it were up to me, I would put Alabama in there does that happen? I don't know. It's hard to know.
Yeah, no, I like the point that Lyle brought up because, again, you look at Alabama. Are they a better team than Oklahoma State? Yes. Are they a better team than Baylor? Yes. Are they better than Notre Dame? Yes. But then, like you said, if you put a 2-loss Alabama team in, they don't even win their conference championship. That's pretty much saying, well, winning the games doesn't matter. We're just at the end of the day going to put in the teams that we think are the 4 best teams, which kind of eliminates the whole playoff formula. Why even play the game? So, it'll be, again, I think, like you said, Lyle, it does determine how they lose. Like if Alabama loses again by 14 points, then I think it's a no-brainer. They'll probably be out. But again, if it's like a hard-fought game, Alabama's winning most of the way, and Georgia wins on a game-winning field goal, something like in the final minute, things can get kind of interesting. Another one that can get kind of interesting, guys, is this upcoming weekend. Ohio State is playing Michigan. So you got Ohio State playing Michigan. Ohio State, they already have 1 loss. So if they were to lose to Michigan this week, I believe they would officially be eliminated from, well, likely playoff contention, but I think it would be Michigan in the Big Ten title game. So if Ohio State loses this weekend, they're likely out. All of a sudden, you got Michigan slided in to the top 4 potentially. Then you got Michigan taking on, I think, Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game next week, if I remember correctly. So you got Michigan versus Wisconsin. Let's say you have Michigan lose next weekend, and all of a sudden now there's no Big Ten team in. Let's say there's no Big Ten team in. So Brady, I'm looking at you right now. No Big Ten team because Michigan loses in the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
And let's just say Alabama loses by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. So you got no Big Ten team. You got no Alabama likely. Do you then have Cincinnati sliding up to number 2? And all of a sudden you got like Notre Dame sliding in. And then I guess the winner of Oklahoma State, Baylor potentially in the Big 12 title game. What do you think happens in that scenario? Which is far-fetched. A lot would have to happen, but that's why I love my hypothetical scenarios.
I think it all comes down to who beat Ohio State, right? So who's their matchup in the Big Ten championship?
Which I believe is number 14 Wisconsin.
See, that's difficult then. If it were say Wisconsin were, I don't know.
Here, this helps.
7. Wisconsin and Iowa loses to Minnesota. However, got it. So it's one of those few schools. I think at that point, if an Ohio State loses, it depends on how they lose, how many points they lose by, and like you said, if it's 4 touchdowns, and that's totally different than hey, they lost by 3 points, they lost by 1, 2, 3, 6, whatever it may be, single-digit points. I think it's how they lose and the means by which they lose. But I think you can move Cincinnati up to 2. I think that would be warranted if, granted, they do win. They win convincingly, and all things work out there. So I think you could potentially eventually see a Georgia-Cincinnati 1-2 if your scenario does play out like that.
Man, right. I'll tell you what, if that really happens and then Alabama loses, where it's Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, one, there can't have been a single person that predicted those 4 at the start of the year. And 2, I mean, your national champions basically already decided if it's those 4. So that would be something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, looking at it, you think, you look at these top rankings and you're thinking, well, for the most part, we think, if all goes well, I mean, assuming everyone wins out and Bama beats Georgia, these are going to be the top 4. These are going to be the teams we see. Things might be shuffled just a bit in regards to the rankings, but there's a lot that can potentially happen because, again, you look at these 4, they, determine their own path. Michigan, they got to beat Ohio State, and then if they beat either Wisconsin, Iowa, the fact that Minnesota somehow has some chance to represent the Big Ten, maybe there needs to be like an Indiana situation like last year where they just go, no, we're going to make sure another team is in it. But again, yeah, Notre Dame and the whole Big 12 thing is interesting because you got Oklahoma State, Baylor, Oklahoma. Again, depending on who beats who, I don't know who exactly is going to be in the Big 12 title game yet, but there's a world out there where a 1-loss Oklahoma State Big 12 champion, they're somehow finding that would be the most random, like, are you serious playoff team of all time? Because we talked about this, I think, on last week's show. I think Lyle's actually the one that brought it up. Oklahoma State must be the most slept on, most random, like top 8 playoff team I can remember in years of the college football playoff. They're sitting there with one loss, which I believe is only by 3 points to Iowa State. They're likely going to run the show and win the Big 12, and they're over here on the verge of a playoff spot, and it just feels like no one's even mentioning it. No one's talking about it. No one's talking about what Mike Gundy's done. I think I said last week, is Spencer Sanders still the quarterback at Oklahoma State? Like, I know nothing about this team this year, and they're borderline. Again, a lot's going to have to go their way, but if Cincinnati were to lose, if Bama were to lose, Michigan's going to fall out. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys, they have a nice, 30-point, 40-point loss coming their way to Georgia. But I think this would go down as the most random, out of nowhere playoff team that we've seen in the 7 years of the college football playoff, I would think.
Yeah, and to be honest, they kind of got written off so early in the season that it's easy to forget about them. And to be fair, there might have been good reason to forget about them early on. They beat Missouri State by 7. They beat Tulsa by 5. They beat Boise State by 1. So they didn't exactly get off to the most riveting start with all those close wins. And then all of a sudden, they just keep winning games. They beat Baylor by 10. They beat Texas. Their one loss was by 3 points to Iowa State. And they just never lost that second game. So here we are. They're sitting with one loss, and they're knocking on the door of a playoff spot. So, again, I mean, they haven't had a whole lot of pretty wins with a bunch of star-studded talent and eye-popping performances, but they just haven't lost games.
I will say this, Blake, is real quick. You said Oklahoma State, no one's talked about them. No one's – whatever you said about them, like, oh, they're the – least talked about, top 10 team over the last Indiana. What about Indiana? Indiana, a shutout for their fellow team, Indiana. Notre Dame by making Cincinnati's sauce as bad as they can, but now Indiana is going to beat Purdue because I said that. Thanks, Notre Dame fan. I appreciate it.
Indianapolis.
Hell, be in the IU Purdue game. 4th different stadium of the year. Woohoo. Anyways, what I was saying is you said Oklahoma State at 7. I take you back even 1 year or the last 2 years as we saw Texas A&M at 5 for a majority of the ranking.
That's right, yeah.
At 5, and no one talked about them. And no one was like, does Texas A&M have a shot to get into the top 4? It was always teams 6 through 8. Never was Texas A&M really considered to be bumped into the top 4, which was bizarre for me.
Yeah, and they just had that really, really lopsided loss to Alabama early in the year. And then they won the rest of their games, but it was deemed they didn't do enough because they didn't have enough good wins.
All right, guys, before we move on, right now, looking at how these are shaping out, what would be your ideal 4-team playoff if the season were to end today? You cancel the games and you choose the 4 teams and you choose the matchups heading into the playoff.
It's this right here, and in order: Georgia, Cincinnati, and then Ohio State, Alabama. Obviously, do we think Georgia's a better team than Cincinnati? Yeah, but a rematch of that New Year's 6 game from last year, where that game was really close, going down to the wire. You get a rematch between Cincinnati and Georgia in that regard, and then what might be the best game of the year, Ohio State versus Alabama. I mean, not only a repeat of last year's national championship, but 2 high-powered offenses, the 2 Heisman front runners, probably a lot of points, and a game that has the potential to stay close. I mean, I think that 2-3 game would be awesome. If you're talking about the best 4 teams to give you the most entertaining games, I think it's these 4. Like, there's almost always blowouts, and whoever's number 4, more likely than not, will probably get blown out. It happens almost every year. But if you want the best 4 teams to give you the best 2 games, in my opinion, it's these 4.
What's something we've said year over year, Lyle? It's hard to beat a team once. It's even harder to beat them twice, right?
That's true. That's true.
Look at this 1-3 team. The teams that are ranked 1 and 3. All right, they're playing each other in the SEC championship. That's locked and loaded. We know that. What happens if they play each other again? Right? Say Georgia beats Alabama. Alabama falls to 4. What happens there? All right, so you're going to get Georgia, Alabama, and you're going to get Ohio State, Cincinnati. I'd love an Ohio State-Cincinnati matchup because that's your battle for Ohio, right?
And your Luke Fickle Bowl.
Your Luke Fickle Bowl. You get your your regional, your down south teams, then you get your Ohio teams on the other one. So I'm going to say that happens. I think Georgia's going to win and Bama going to fall to 4, and Cincy. I'm going to have Cincy jumping up to 3. So I'll go Georgia, Ohio State, Cincy, Alabama, just because I want that matchup to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of tough thinking about this because if Bama beats Georgia, I assume that Ohio State would go to 1, and then Georgia would maybe. I don't know how that would go
I think
because
Georgia would go to 3 or 4, and the teams, if they all other ones win, will just shift down.
See, my take on this is if Bama beats Georgia, they're just going to flip those two teams because I don't think the committee wants them playing again in the first round. I think in their ideal situation, you get new matchups, and if both those teams win, then fine, that's your national championship. But I think if they had to have it their way, which, they have all the power and they hold, all the decision making, they would rather have different matchups.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was worried about. I wouldn't want to see an SEC rematch for the first game. It'd be fine for the national championship like we had a couple years ago. But yeah, seeing Cincinnati versus Georgia, which I know Georgia's a lot better this year. Cincinnati should have beaten them last year. I mean, if you guys remember correctly, that's when I think Cincinnati, they had like awful clock management at the very end. And then Georgia hit like the 50-yard field goal to win. So Cincy could have beaten them last year. So you're getting the rematch between Cincy and Georgia. And then, like Lyle said, Ohio State versus Alabama might be the best game of the year. And then, if Bama wins, I want to, because ultimately I want to see Ohio State versus Georgia for the Natty. You got the best defense versus the best offense. So however we get there, I think that's going to be great. But yeah, I think overall, when it comes to best matchups, most competitive, Lyle, I sent this to the group chat that Georgia would be a hypothetical 16.5-point favorite over Cincinnati. Well, if Georgia were to play Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, it would be in the 20s. So I know 16 is a lot, but at least 16 is better than what those other ones would be. So looking at these 4, I hope these are the matchups that we get in the first 2 playoff games because I think they're going to be fantastic. I think we're in for a treat. But then again, hypotheticals, there's a lot that can happen. So we'll just have to wait and see. So before we move on, guys, if you have any questions you guys have for us, and later in the show, hit us up in the live chat. We'll be answering your guys' questions before we get to the pick'em. So if you have questions about the playoff, hypotheticals, questions about, what exactly Brady was doing shooting for a proposal today and why he's spending his hard hours doing that, by all means, ask him in the live chat. We'll be answering as many questions as we can.
They haven't announced it yet, so I can't tell you that.
There we go. And we'll be getting to a fun pick'ems later in the show. A lot of rivalry games, a lot of cool trophy names. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But again, any questions you have in the chat, get those ready. Let us know down below. Guys, before we move on, we've talked about some Heisman discussion in the past. And pretty much at this point, I think it's down to 2 guys, CJ Stroud versus Bryce Young. CJ Stroud, we've talked about how he's just come out of nowhere. I mean, after that Oregon game, he was essentially left for dead in the rankings, but he has had a phenomenal second half. Bryce Young, he's been great all season. So, we talked about being a very competitive Heisman race featuring a lot of names. But at this point, Kenneth Walker, I think he's out. These are the 2 guys at this point coming into the final week of the season. Because I believe Heisman voting, it still takes into account championship weekend. So they still are going to have 2 weeks left, unless you're Ohio State. At this point right now, guys, who do you think has the edge? And with that being said, do you think there's any chance for the other guy to step up to the plate and take home the Heisman?
It's tough, right? Because CJ Stroud is the favorite. I think at this point, if the season ended today, he would win. And if you look at the odds from Vegas Insider or wherever, Stroud is the favorite. And rightfully so. I mean, they played a top 7 team this past weekend and he lit them up. But Bryce Young had a really, really good game. It just didn't get talked about as much. I mean, he just absolutely lit it up against Arkansas, who is ranked, and he threw for like 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. So I think Stroud is still the favorite. But if Bryce Young goes off in this SEC title game and lights up that Georgia defense, which has been, fully disclaimed the best defense in college football by far this season, he could jump right back in it. I mean, it's still close.
Yeah, I think it's Stroud, especially what we see for the Heisman, what we've seen in years past. It's a lot of what have you done for me lately? And you look at what, granted, both of these guys have done lately, but what CJ Stroud has done just this past weekend, what he did to torch a top, what were they, 6 or 7? What was Michigan State this past week?
Yeah, I think they were ranked 6 or 7, one of those.
Whatever, to the number 7 team in the country. Yeah, Arkansas is ranked, but, it wasn't a top 7 matchup. I think what we saw from Stroud was what everyone expected to see from him, and I think he's going to be the guy that gets it. I think both will be invited. I think we'll also see Walker invited just from what we've seen from him throughout the entirety of the year. Yeah, you have one-off game, but you look at, the overall outcome of that game. There's only so much you can do. You're not the quarterback. The ball's getting put into your hands. You're not distributing. You're not doing everything else with it. So I think I think those will be the 3 guys that get invited to New York or wherever they're doing this ceremony. Whatever.
Yeah, I think it's CJ Stroud. I think he is the betting favorite. Last I looked, he was like minus 300. His odds might be getting even better. If Ohio State wins this week, wins next week, I think it's his locked and loaded. Things will get interesting as we see a good boy over there looking through Brady's office. Things will get interesting if Ohio State loses to Michigan this week. I don't know how much it would impact his performance, but this is the biggest game of the year for Ohio State and for CJ Stroud. Look who it is. We have another guest. So if they lose, maybe that hurts his case and Bryce Young takes it. But assuming Ohio State wins out, I think it's going to be CJ Stroud, which again, I wish I could go back and see Undershock. Yeah, I agree with those rankings. I still can't ever bet on Gonzaga after what they did to me against Baylor. But I want to know what CJ Stroud's odds were after they lost to Oregon, because they must have been like 50, 60, 70 to 1, something like that, because I thought his odds were shot, and he's been phenomenal. He's been fantastic, but this weekend against Michigan, this week for Bryce Young against Alabama, and then next week in the conference championship games, those are when Heisman moments are made. This is the chance for those 2 guys to cement their legacy, and we'll have to wait and see. But I'm going to give the edge to CJ Stroud, and who knows? We have a good battle on our hands, so anything can happen. All right, guys, we're going to answer questions for 5 to 10 minutes, and then in honor of Brady, we're going to have a true rapid fire pick'ems with, again, a lot of good rivalries, a lot of good trophy games. So, guys, if you have any questions in the live chat, hit us up. We'll try to get to as many as we can in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Swampy McGee wants to know, is Georgia feeling the most pressure ever? I mean, people are talking about Georgia having the best defense we've seen in some time. They're, the favorite to win the national championship. It's been some time since they won a national championship. They're not used to being the favorite to win the Natty. So are they feeling the most pressure they've ever faced with their program?
It's got to be close, especially because when they made the national championship in 2017 and they played Alabama, and Alabama was expected to win that game. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a really good national championship, capped off with an insane walk-off touchdown, but people expected Alabama to win that game. Now there's real expectation on Georgia to win it all. They're the betting favorite. They've got the best defense in college football. And again, like, we haven't really seen expectations like this for Georgia in a while. So yeah, I don't know, maybe 50 years ago there was pressure on them or something like that. But since I've been a college football fan, as far as I can remember, yeah.
In recent memory, yes. I'm guessing, like Lyle said, 65 years ago. Who knows? But there was some pressure on him. But I think in recent memory, yes. This is, especially in the year that it's been, the first full year back off of COVID, and we didn't see any game cancellations this year. I think this is, what some people randomly call Mickey Mouse championships for some reason. I think this is, real, deserved, hard earned. And I think, yeah, they've got the most pressure in recent memory to live up to.
Yeah, I still don't know why everything's called a Mickey Mouse championship.
Disney World.
Well, no, I get the NBA one because that was the Disney
why.
World. That one I get, but how everyone's like, oh, the Dodgers won a Mickey Mouse championship. I'm like, but no.
Because, Blake, why? Because people are stupid. They can never accept the fact that the best team won and just deal with it. And dumb, stupid, sour sports fans. And if a team wins that they don't like, they say, oh, something was rigged, something's wrong, instead of just dealing with it, embracing it.
Yeah,
That's my soapbox.
I don't get the Mickey Mouse thing either for baseball. I think the name just started to translate everywhere for COVID titles because since the NBA was played in the Disney World bubble, people called that the Mickey Mouse title, and then all of a sudden it just kind of translated everywhere else. But
Right.
yeah, it doesn't really make sense other than that one NBA title.
Yeah, I'm talking to you, Padres fans. I'm talking to you guys.
Talking to
Guys,
you,
Mason
Andrew Bell.
Rogers. Mason Rogers wants to know: do you think that the Cincinnati Bearcats can win it all?
I'd love to say yes, but I don't think they can. They're a nice story, and they absolutely deserve to get into the playoff. But to beat Georgia and then either Ohio State or Alabama, that's a steep mountain to climb.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. I like it. 2 years, everyone said last year put them in. They didn't get put in. I say yes. I think they will be there, and I think they have a shot because this will be their first big test, and I say yeah. I'm going to say yeah. Why not?
Right. Because why? Because why, Lyle?
Because why Cincinnati?
It's a little early for that, but hey, because why not?
This is a good one, guys. It comes from Brandon. If you're Georgia, who do you want to avoid playing the most? So I assume, I mean, this could be in the first game. This could also be the national championship. But looking at the teams that we mentioned around him, who do you think has the best chance of potentially upsetting Georgia?
I mean, I know they always say defense beats offense when the number one defense goes against the number one offense, but regardless, I wouldn't want to play Ohio State if I was Georgia, especially the way they're trending right now. I think that's the team that gives them the best fight.
I'd say Ohio State as well, with what we've seen from their offense, especially the wide receiving core. The trio of JSN with Olave and Wilson. I don't think, Georgia's defense is really good, but it's their front seven mainly. And I don't know how well they would be able to handle a wide receiving core like that. So that's a team I wouldn't want to play against.
Yeah, I say Ohio State just because, again, I think that's the only team that is going to be able to put up consistent points against this Georgia defense. So, yeah, if I'm Georgia, Ohio State, you're one. But another one to keep an eye on, though, again, we talked about it earlier, Cincinnati. Because this Georgia offense, I know they've put up points against some bad teams. I just don't think their offense is, they're relying on their defense heavily. And if you're turning to Stetson Bennett and you're going to say, hey, we need to get 4 or 5 touchdowns out of you, that's a tall task. And I think Cincinnati's defense has the capability of limiting points. So, that one could be a tough one based on defense versus defense. Guys, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about this in the live chat and under Shaq in all caps to make it stand out. Is Oklahoma State the hottest defense at the moment? The stats say yes. So I went back and I looked. Someone in the live chat said something about how I think they've allowed like 1 touchdown over the last 4 games. I think they've allowed 2 because they allowed 17 a couple weeks ago. But over their last 4 games, they held Kansas to 3. They held West Virginia to 3. They held Texas Tech to 0. And they held TCU to 17. So, Oklahoma State, we talk about them being so underrated. But that's unbelievable considering it's coming from a Big 12 team where Oklahoma State, they're not known for defense. They're holding, a Texas Tech team, a West Virginia team, even Kansas, who has put up points. I think they put up like 50 against Texas. They put up like 30 against Oklahoma. So holding them to 3, is Oklahoma State all of a sudden having the best defense out of anyone? Like, step aside Georgia. We have a new team in town.
I don't think they're better than Georgia, but yeah, I mean, that's the story of Oklahoma State this year is their defenses carried them, which is, like you said, crazy to say about a Big 12 team, but it's the truth. I mean, their offense hasn't been insane by any standards, but it's the defense that's really brought them to where they are right now. And that's, again, knocking on the doorstep of the college football playoff.
Right.
I think since week 1, it's all been Georgia's defense. Yeah, Oklahoma State's been playing really well, but it's Georgia.
All right, guys, we got time for a few more questions, so we'll get through these. John Cena, glad to have you in the chat, John. Where will Spencer Rattler go next year?
Well, you know what they say. State, Arizona State.
But with Jaden Daniels coming back?
Yeah, that's true. I still think that would be hilarious if he transfers to ASU, but I don't know. I mean, I still feel like there's a chance Rattler decides, yeah, it's fine. I'm just going to go to the draft. This QB class is weak. I'll take my chance. But if he goes somewhere else, I mean, he is from Arizona. Other than that, maybe he looks at a couple of these Pac-12 schools. Maybe he'd look at somewhere like Oregon, who hasn't exactly had great QB play since Herbert left. But I would guess the door is going to be wide open for him. I know he got benched, but I think there's about 100 schools that would take Spencer Rattler as their starter in a heartbeat.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him compared to Jaden Daniels. I mean, at this point, it's like who would you rather have? Who's better? I got no clue, but it'll be interesting. I don't think he goes the NFL route because even though it's a weak quarterback class, if you're a team, I don't know why you'd want to, unless you're taking like a late round flyer on him. There's definitely places he can go to. I know Lyle mentioned Arizona. What if he goes to the Wildcats? That's just how bad it is. He's got to go there and guide them to 3 wins. Our man Johnny, what's more likely to happen in the next 5 years? A playoff without an SEC team or another wide receiver / defensive player winning the Heisman?
I think it has to be the latter. Yeah, it is a good question. I think it's the latter, especially because we just saw Devontae Smith win the Heisman last year. We now know it's possible for a wide receiver, defensive player to do it. But a playoff without the SEC, that seems pretty tough. I mean, maybe one day we'll really see it, but in the next 5 years, as long as Saban's at Alabama and there's other teams not that far behind them, I think the better chance is seeing the latter.
Right.
Well, considering we had a running back in the discussion all the way up until this last week, I think for this year, I think we'll see a wide receiver, defensive player / running back specialist, whatever it may be, win a Heisman before we see without an SEC team.
Yeah, one thing,
especially when it's going to be expanding in the next few years.
I'm looking this up right now because I know a lot of people are all on like the Jordan Davis from Georgia hype train, wanting him to win the Heisman Trophy. And I saw someone, they pointed out his stats. Now, granted, the position he's playing, you can't completely rack up the best stat line imaginable. But on the season, he's got 23 tackles with 3.5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. Again, I know he's disrupting almost every play, but we're going to have a little better numbers than that if you're going to want to win the Heisman Trophy. Just a little more than 23 tackles through 12 games, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's a stat award, and you kind of have to be shown on the television screen for to get yourself in the conversation. That's why running backs are always in it. That's why quarterbacks are always in it. That's why receivers, even last year, are in it because, they're visible. Jordan Davis isn't always that visible, and unless you rack up 20 sacks, it's going to be tough. Now, his play has elevated him to be a top 15 pick come April, but yeah, like you said, I think for a defensive player to win the Heisman, they would have to have like 7 or 8 picks and 6 or 7 sacks and some pass breakups and some signature play to seal a big win. Like, I think you'd have to do a lot of different things on the defensive side of the ball and be on a good team. So basically rack up stats and win.
7 rushing touchdowns.
He has a rushing touchdown.
That's true. He does. That was fun on Saturday.
That was fun. So one thing I do want to say, going back to the Spencer Rattler question, is the teams that he only had 14 offers coming out of high school, but that was because he was committed to Oklahoma so early. You look at a guy of his stature, of his rank, he was the number 1 dual threat quarterback, the number 1 quarterback, and the 11 overall composite player on 24/7. But you look at the teams that offered him, it was Oklahoma, Alabama, Arizona, ASU, Colorado, Kentucky, Memphis, Miami, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Tennessee, Texas, Texas A&M, and Utah. I think every single one of those teams, not Alabama, will be glad to have him on their team.
Yeah.
Every single one of them.
It'll be a reclamation project wherever he ends up. All right, guys, we're moving into our pick'ems now, and things are heating up. Lyle, he had a good week, and he's right back in it. So me and Josh, we both got 82. Brady, you're at 81. Lyle, you're at 80. As I mentioned, we got a lot to get to this week. We're going to go through them because I wanted to include as many rivalry trophies that I could. So for some of these, obviously we can provide a little insight if we want to, but for some of them, I don't think there's going to be any discussion necessary. Next week, we're only going to have a couple, and all of a sudden, that wraps up the pick'ems for the year because I know we do a separate one for bowl games. So, guys, this is the week to get in it. This is the week where we're likely going to determine a winner. So, are you guys ready for some of the greatest rivalries and trophies in all of college football?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's get this. Let's redo these. Perfect. Without further ado, guys, let's start things up with the Apple Cup. Washington State at Washington.
Oh, man, what a disaster year for both these teams. Washington will win. Scratch that. it'll be Washington State. They have something to play for. They could still come out of the North. So I'm going to say the Cougars get the win on the road.
I was also going to say Washington State. I think they, like you said, Lyle, they have something to play for. They're still in the hunt, technically. So, Wazoo.
Yeah, things are a mess at Washington, so I'm going to go with Wazoo. The Valley Cup, Fresno State at San Jose State.
Give me Fresno State.
Give me Fresno State. For what? They were ranked at one point this year, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, give me Fresno State.
Yeah, Jake Haener, man. He had that great game against UCLA. I'm going to go with Fresno State because I like Bulldogs. The Egg Bowl, Ole Miss at Mississippi State.
Man, this is on Thanksgiving too. 2 ranked teams. I mean, not that people aren't going to want to watch the NFL, but this should be a fun thing to watch too. I like Ole Miss in this game. I know Mississippi State has a couple of good ranked wins this year, but I like Matt Corral to come out firing and Ole Miss to get the win.
I saw some mocks. I was looking at some NFL mock drafts, and Matt Corral's climbing. That could be a testament to how well he's playing, or like Lyle said a minute ago, how poor this quarterback class is. I think Ole Miss will get the win this week, and I think Corral will ball out on the Egg Bowl.
A battle between amazing coaches, Lane Kiffin versus Mike Leach, and this will ever be remembered by me as the Elijah Moore dog piss when he had the greatest celebration ever and cost his team the game. And well, look at him now. But I'm going to go with Ole Miss in this one because I just think they're the better team. The Heroes Trophy, Iowa at Nebraska. Now, guys, before we get to this one, I shared this with Brady. I don't know if you heard about this, but I want to share this to all of our viewers out there who might be interested in the betting world. Former Hastings, Nebraska resident Milton Andrew Munson Jr. passed away at the age of 73 recently. His memorial was actually today. Now, he asked, instead of bringing flowers to his memorial, that you all place an irresponsibly large wager on Nebraska beating Iowa. In his honor, I put $50 on Nebraska money line. So Milton Andrew Munson Jr., this one's for you. Guys, what do we think about this game?
I heard about this too. I'll take Nebraska. Why not? Iowa's season's just spiraled downhill. So, it's one of those games where you come out firing because you feel like you have something to play for. So give me Nebraska.
I think this caught wind big time. And I'm telling you, Lincoln will be rocking with this riding on it, especially. I've got Nebraska, and I think they're going to easily cover.
Nebraska's 3-8. They're the greatest 3-8 team. There was actually like a thread I saw how they actually proved that Nebraska is the greatest 3-8 team in college football history. They're, I think, now like 1-8 in conference play and have still outscored their opponents. They don't have a loss by more than 8 points, I think, this year. I'm going to go into Nebraska because how can you bet on Iowa after reading that? You simply can't. You simply can't. All right, guys.
I'd like to say before we move on, Josh has sent in his pick'ems, and he has Iowa in this game.
Well, that's because he hates this. He hates that man.
Yeah, well,
he hates that man.
He also had Ole Miss so far for what it's worth.
All good. All right, guys. We got the battle line rivalry, Missouri at Arkansas.
I'm going to go with Arkansas. They'll bounce back after this loss to Alabama last week, and they'll take care of Missouri.
I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this will be like one of the randomly entertaining games that comes down to the wire when it's like 56-54 going on in like a minute left. So I'm going to go Arkansas.
I'm going to go Arkansas as well. I mean, Missouri is just falling apart this year for whatever reason. I don't know why. One of the better names, one of the names that I actually enjoy the most, the War on I-4, South Florida at UCF.
I'll take UCF in this game.
I'm going to go UCF, but USF is rocking some great throwback jerseys on their first ever football roster. So they've got the entire roster on the stripe down their helmet. So I'm going to go UCF.
Yeah, I'm going to go UCF. Remember a couple years ago, though, when like South Florida and UCF were both like top 20 teams, and this was like one of the more hype games of like, it was like on a Friday. Mackenzie Milton went off for like 500 yards. That was a fun one, but I'm going to go with UCF. The battle on the Bayou.
Right? I said UCF,
yeah,
right?
You did.
Okay, good.
The battle on the Bayou that doesn't feature LSU because it's UL Monroe at Louisiana.
I
Give me the
will
Raging
take.
Cajuns. Sorry, I jumped in there. Give me the Raging Cajuns.
That's fine. I'll take Louisiana too.
You got to go with the Raging Cajuns. I mean, one of the best names out there. The Rumble in the Rockies. Colorado at Utah.
I will take Utah in this game. I mean, this is a game they should take care of. If they don't, well, they could be in a little bit of trouble. Just because, hey, if they lose this game magically, ASU actually they no longer have a shot at the Rose Bowl because they lost last week. RIP.
Yeah.
But Utah will win this
ASU.
game.
Yeah, I've got Utah by at least 2 scores.
Yeah, Utah's going to crush them in the Rockies. The Old Oaken Bucket, Indiana at Purdue. Add this to the list of what game is Brady at this week? Well, that's this one.
At Purdue, too.
I will take Purdue. Josh also has Purdue. I'm just reading his pick'ems to keep track. So
yeah,
give me the Boilermakers.
Give me the Boilermakers by at least touchdowns.
Boy.
Never thought I would do this. Actually, you know what? No, I'm going to go IU because Purdue doesn't really have much to play for. They have a winning record. They've won 8 games, something like that. 7 games. They have a winning record. IU always finds a way to play them well, especially in this game. I'm going to go with Indiana. And that's not I'm an Indiana fan. I just think they can win.
At the beginning of the season, Brady, I think you missed the show. It was like our hot take episode. And one of Lyle, I think it was Lyle, one of his hot takes was essentially that Indiana was not overrated, but last year was maybe a little too good to be true. Well, they're currently 2. Oh, you were? Or maybe it was.
And I said
remember.
I said the thing about Coastal Carolina because I thought Coastal would be bad. But go on. Sorry, we're running out of time.
Yeah, I was just saying that when you actually go and look back at who Indiana beat last year, they didn't actually end up with a whole lot of convincing wins. They just won a few games in a shortened season. And then they came out this year, they started the year ranked, and it was kind of all downhill from there.
And they're currently 2-9, one of the worst teams in the FBS.
I changed my mind. Give me Purdue.
Yeah,
David
give
Bell
me
is so good.
Give me Purdue as well. One of the most boring names out there, but hey, it's a trophy. The Legends Trophy, Notre Dame at Stanford.
Notre Dame should win this by a lot. Also, I'll give a quick shout out to Notre Dame. I know I said that they don't belong in the college football playoff, and they probably don't. But if they win this game over the last 5 years, they'll be 54-9. I mean, that's pretty good. That's up there with Alabama, Ohio State in terms of records. So Notre Dame will win this game, and they should take care of business in Palo Alto.
I think Notre Dame's going to win this game, but I got one quick thing to say, and is the disrespect that Michael Mayer has for not being named a John Mackey Award finalist is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, what was that? Who are you putting in over him?
Asinine. I don't have other words. Befuddling, confusing, shocking. Other words like that. It's crazy. The dude's the best hitter in the country, hands down.
Yeah. Well,
Notre Dame.
You hate to say it. Notre Dame is going to absolutely annihilate Stanford in this one. The Palmetto Bowl, Clemson at South Carolina.
Clemson's ranked again.
Yeah, it took long enough.
I know. I mean, I thought Clemson was going to legitimately be a 5-7, 6-6 type team after their first couple games, the way they looked, but they've turned it around, which we probably should have expected, and I think they beat South Carolina.
Yeah, I got Clemson as well. I think turning it around, one thing that sucks is how much hype DJ Uiagalelei had coming into the year, and we really haven't seen or heard much of him. I think he gets a bounce back year next year, but I got Clemson in this game.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, Clemson, their season went off the rail. If they win this week and then win whatever bowl game they're at, they're going to finish the season 10-3, which is a fantastic season for majority of teams. But for them, it seems like they were awful this year. But I'm going to go with Clemson. This one's on here. Texas A&M at LSU. It's a great game, but unfortunately, no cool name / trophy. But I believe this could be Coach O's last game at LSU because I think if they lose, they are not bowl eligible. So the end of an era. I don't know. It was a gumbo.
Hey, man. Thank you, man. Go Tigers. Our boy Joey crushed that video.
He did. Like I said, That Colin Coward one will forever have a special place in my heart. But
The
that
backwards
one,
hat one.
yeah, that one. Oh my God, I laugh every time I watch that. But yeah, the one he did today about the Thanksgiving dinner was great. Joey's just really, really good at those videos all around.
He's finding some new ones too, like the Gus Johnson was really good. So.
Yeah, it was. That was good. I'm going to take A&M. I know this is LSU's last, or it could be Coach O's last game at LSU, but I think A&M's just the superior team. I still feel so bad for Coach O. I mean, 2 years ago, he won the national championship. Now he gets fired. The SEC is just so brutal, but it's kind of been a brutal season for LSU, and I think they lose to A&M.
Right.
I also think they lose to A&M. I hate to see it, and my adopted, I'll call it adopted fandom. Nice way of saying bandwagoning on LSU the last few years, but I think A&M gets the win. You know what? No. I'm going LSU in what could be Coach O's last game. Ride or die with my ride or die. I'm going LSU.
Yeah, Brady's going to have no use for his LSU polo anymore. He's going to have to get a new polo for wherever Coach O goes. And look at Coach O cost that money. I'm going to go with A&M, but it would be great to see Coach O win his final game there at LSU. The Commonwealth Cup, Virginia Tech at Virginia.
I think Virginia's just a little bit better. Plus, this game's at home. I'm going to take Virginia, and Josh also has Virginia to keep track. He also had A&M in the last game.
I'm going to go Virginia at home.
Yeah, I'll go Virginia at home as well. They've been quietly good, and Brennan Armstrong has been a really good quarterback. Unfortunately, no cool name or trophy, which is weird considering, North Carolina, NC State, but for some reason, they don't got anything yet. You guys can still come up with one.
No.
This will be close. I think this will be a good game. I'm going to take North Carolina. I think Sam Howell comes out, puts up a nice stat line, and North Carolina scores enough points to come away with a win. Although NC State, I mean, they've been kind of a frisky team this year. They've been in some games, and they've certainly played well throughout the course of their year. They've kind of outperformed expectations. So I'm going to go with North Carolina, but game stays close. Josh has NC State in this one.
I'm going to go with North Carolina. I think, Lau, you nailed it about Sam Howell. I think he'll do a decent stat line. He'll play really well in what would be a regular season finale, and I'm going to go North Carolina.
I'll go North Carolina on the road as well. Actually, scratch that. No, because they've been really bad. I'm going to go with NC State at home. Guys, we got about 10 more to go, Brady, that answers your questions. So we'll just rapid fire through these, except for, again, at the end, we got a couple good ones. All right, guys, we got Deeper Than Hate, Appalachian State at Georgia Southern.
App State.
App State. Easy.
App State. And this is one of my favorite names that I found. Deeper Than Hate. What's Deeper Than Hate, guys? Well, we got the Shit Bowl featuring 1 in 10 UMass at 1 in 10 New Mexico State. And yes, this is what it actually is called. This is, if you Google it, what the name of this
Wait,
game is.
is it actually?
No.
I was gonna say for 1 second you had me. I was like, there's absolutely no chance this is the name of this game. And until you said, oh, well, if you go look it up, oh, this is what it's called. Yeah. Okay. No.
Come on, Lyle.
New Mexico State. I mean, UMass, like we've talked about, they are so bad. New Mexico State.
Give me New Mexico State.
Hey, New Mexico State's favored by a touchdown, so I'm going to go with New Mexico State.
Wow, how did you believe him?
Well, again, I was just kind of letting him go through his spiel, thinking, I mean, yeah, this is obviously not the name of it, but somehow he got me with the whole, if you go look it up, this is what it's called.
I don't know if they've ever even played each other, but the fact that we get to end the year with 2 1 in 10 teams, not as bad as UConn UMass from about a month ago, but this is up next. Paul Bunyan's Axe, Wisconsin and Minnesota.
I'll take Wisconsin. They've really turned their season around. The fact they're now a top 15 team after the way they lost to Notre Dame and the way Graham Mertz started his season, I mean, that's pretty impressive. So I'm going to take Wisconsin. Josh has Wisconsin too.
I don't have an axe, but I have a hammer. And I'm hammering Wisconsin in this game.
I don't have anything. I got a Serenity Now button from Seinfeld. So we'll go with
That's
that.
awesome.
I'm gonna go with Wisconsin on this one.
That's awesome.
Clean old fashioned hate. Another one with hate in it. The Governor's Cup. Georgia at Georgia Tech.
Dude, give me the rambling wreck in this game. I'm kidding. Georgia wins.
Is this to cover or is this outright?
So the spread is
way?
35. The spread is
Either
currently
way.
35.
Either way, it's gonna be Georgia.
I wonder because Notre Dame just beat this team by like 45, 50. So how much is Georgia going to beat them by? Give me Georgia. Bedlam, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. And I don't know if you guys saw this. I think it was Mike Gundy they asked, and they said once Oklahoma moves to the SEC, is there going to be Bedlam anymore? And he's like, honestly, probably not. So this might be the last Bedlam game we get at Oklahoma State before they move to the SEC.
This will be a good test, offense versus defense. I think Oklahoma State ends up getting the win. I know Oklahoma only has one loss too, so their season isn't technically over if they got some help from the committee, but it's pretty clear to this point the path to the playoff for Oklahoma State is more wide open with a little bit more to play for. So I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I think they hold on and do enough defensively to quiet Caleb Williams in Oklahoma, or Rattler, whoever plays.
Well, yeah.
But
why not both?
Or both. I'll take Oklahoma State. Josh has the Cowboys too.
Both at the same time.
True.
Yeah, that's the thing, though. It's kind of easy to game plan. They're both downfield passers, and they both are run threats. So it's not like you have to game plan for one or the other. They can just plug in and play whatever defense you do. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. I'm going to go Boomer Sooner on the road.
I'm going to go Oklahoma State. I'll go Oklahoma State, so I finally give them the respect they deserve. The Land Grant Trophy. A very lame name. What a very lame trophy. Penn State and Michigan State.
Michigan State will bounce back. Kenneth Walker will have a big game. They'll get the win.
I agree. Michigan State.
Yeah, I think Michigan State bounces back as well. It's not called this one anymore, but it is to me the Civil War, Oregon State at Oregon.
Oregon's going to bounce back and win too. I know they lost last week and in a pretty ugly game to Utah, but rivalry week, they're still looking to win the Pac-12. They've still got a season to play for. I'm going to take Oregon. Josh has Oregon State, so he went against the grain on this one.
I'm going to go with Oregon in this one. I'm not going against the grain. I got the Ducks.
Oregon State's sneaky good, but I'm going to go with Oregon at home in this one. The Sunshine Showdown, battle for bowl eligibility, Florida at Florida State.
Another couple of teams that their season's just been totally derailed. I'm going to take Florida. I just think they're a little bit more talented than Florida State. Josh has Florida State, however.
I've got Florida State because no Dan Mullen at Florida.
That's true.
Yeah, Florida State, we give them grief, but they've kind of turned things around a bit. I don't have the exact record, but ever since what's his name threw that shoe in that Florida game, they're like
all been downhill.
2-7, 2-8 against like Power 5 teams. Like,
yeah, and when Dan Mullen after that game went off in his press conference being like, yeah, we should have just played 6 games or we would have gotten into the playoff. It's like, you lost like 3 times. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Florida's a dumb. I'm going to go with Florida State at this one at home. Guys, a few more games left. The 2 biggest coming up. We got the Iron Bowl, Alabama at Auburn.
Auburn almost always finds a way to hang around in this game. I mean, we saw it a couple years ago. We thought in 2019 Alabama would just be penciled in for the playoff with 1 loss, and then Bo Nix went out there and beat them. So is he going to do it a second time? I say no. I think Bryce Young has another big game, and Alabama wins. I'll say by 10.
I got Alabama by at least 2 scores.
I did
because
take
Lyle.
Oh, because why not? Josh has Bama too.
Getting in at the very end. I did take Auburn plus the 19.5. I'm going to go with Bama, though. Did you guys hear what Bo Nix said this week about Alabama and how the refs always seem to be on their side?
Yeah.
Good Bo Nix.
What a guy.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you want to say before you go and
face Bama
by 60.
Who knows? All right, guys.
Like you know that's on their bulletin board this week. In Tuscaloosa.
I thought the same thing about Jimbo Fisher when he said to Alabama, we're going to kick their ass. And Nick Saban was like, in golf? And A&M ended up somehow beating them. So, hey, who knows? Maybe maybe Nick Saban just doesn't really care after all. Guys, we got the game, Ohio State at Michigan.
Look, on paper, this is going to be a great matchup, just like we thought last week. But you know what? We've been given enough data points by now that until Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines prove it otherwise, it's hard to put any faith in them and pick them to win this game. Plus, Ohio State's been so good this year. I mean, not just Stroud running for a Heisman Trophy, but like Brady talked about, their 3 receivers, Travion Henderson, even Mayan Williams behind them. Like, this offense is too explosive. I don't think Michigan's going to have any answers. I've got Ohio State. Josh also has Ohio State.
And I also have Ohio State. I think there are no questions about this one.
Yeah, I got Ohio State. They're currently an 8-point favorites. I've seen nothing that makes me think Michigan's able to pull this off. But then again, anything can happen in a rivalry game. Michigan's defense is really good. It might be one of the best defenses Ohio State's faced all season, but I got the Buckeyes. Guys, the final one on our slate, the Territorial Cup, the oldest trophy in college football, as Brady reminded me, which again is unbelievable to even think about. Arizona State. Now, the question is not, does ASU win? The question is, do they win by 63 like they did last year?
Well, I'll tell you who was offended about winning by 63 or 56 or however much it was. That's Jed Fish, who decided to stand up in front of the podium this week. And, we were just talking about Dan Mullen ranting during a press conference. How about Jed Fish? He's like, yeah, when they went for it on 4th down up like 50, we took offense to that back last year in the 4th quarter. And you're sitting there thinking to yourself, you weren't even there last year. Like, what are you talking about? So there's some bulletin board material for ASU this week. Do I think they need it? No, because Arizona's like one of the worst teams in the Power 5. ASU's going to win. I'm taking the Devils one last time. Josh also sent a message for his pick'em that says, I love U of A. Go Wildcats. I'm kidding. Josh also has ASU.
Yeah, I've got ASU too. I think if last year was any indication of what we're going to see from the ASU team against U of A, I think we can see it again this year. And this year's at home. So I don't think it's going to be a 63-point margin. I think it'll be a little closer than last year, but I think ASU gets it done. And, against any other opponent, you sort of ease off the gas a little bit later in the game. Not happening here. Jackson, he at least 1 touchdown.
Yeah, the spread is currently 20. I took a minus the 20 because I think this is 30-40. Like you said, in one of these games, you don't let up. You pile it on as much as you can, especially at home. They're going to want to pile it on because it's a rivalry game. You want to score as many as you can. So I'm going to go with Arizona State. Guys, before we wrap up this show for the week, one final thing I want to get to, a very important topic of discussion that we have yet to get to. That is the best Thanksgiving dishes. Everyone has their hot takes. Everyone has different rankings. Lyle, I'll start off with you. You don't have to give me 1 through 5, but let me know what you absolutely need. What is required at the Thanksgiving lunch table? Because we're over here having it for post lunch, not the dinner table like what Brady's having. West Coast
versus East time zone. It's all time zones.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brady's actually eating at 3:00 if he was sitting on the Harris Highlights show.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a popular answer or one that most people will have because most people say turkey or mashed potatoes or stuffing. So not only do I love cranberry sauce, I eat it in just ungodly portions. Like, I serve myself so much of it every year, like multiple times throughout the meal, and I just devour it. I mean, if there's no cranberry sauce, you can throw it away. Like
that's half my can or homemade.
I think we usually home make it.
Meredith is definitely home making it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know we bought some cranberries this week to make it, but oh God. Other people might believe differently, but hey, that's half my meal right there. So give me the cranberry sauce.
Spencer, do us a favor. Snap a photo tomorrow of Lyle eating the cranberry sauce and send it to us. Yes. I'd love to see that. Love to see that. What else you got, Lyle? What are some other ones?
Oh, do you want some more? Like rank? How many do we want to rank?
Again, just anything you require, unless you literally are just content with cranberry sauce.
Like... No, I mean, I wouldn't only eat that. I mean, you got to go with stuffing. mashed potatoes, I feel like, are a must. That's the thing about Thanksgiving. Like, the turkey's the centerpiece of the meal, but I feel like most people enjoy the sides more than the turkey. So I feel like it's stuffing, mashed potatoes, yeah, the cranberry sauce for me. So yeah, I think if I had to pick 3, those are my 3.
Mashed potatoes all day long. There's been a point where I've eaten only mashed potatoes for like a little bit of turkey. No, just load up mashed potatoes. Just load it up. There was one point where
Right.
last year I was sitting, don't know why. We did Thanksgiving in Arizona with my family there last year, and there's like a bar countertop. I was sitting underneath the countertop with a full cup of mashed potatoes, just eating it. I don't know why, just straight mashed potatoes. Also, a good pumpkin pie goes a long way. Big pumpkin pie fan, but I do like the cranberries too, Lyle. I'm with you on that one. Do you mix food together? So like you take some turkey and mashed potatoes and cranberry and gravy and mix it, or you keep your food separate? You're separate, Lyle. I know you are.
Yeah.
Usually I keep it separate. What
Yeah.
people mix mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. That's a deal breaker for me. Maybe
There's some
stuffing
freaks out there.
Maybe stuffing in cranberry sauce would be all right. Like, that's fine. Or I guess I've seen people do it with turkey, but I don't know
Yeah.
about like mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce.
What about like
Although,
turkey and mashed potatoes?
no, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
no,
that's fine. But
I-
hey, I was just gonna say to add on. I didn't realize we were doing desserts, but yeah, you got to go with pies for dessert. Like, pecan and apple are usually my go-to for dessert on Thanksgiving, but any kind of pie kind of works.
Yeah,
Blake?
I got some hot takes. I hate pumpkin pie. I hate it. I can never get behind it. I hate it. Also, not a fan of cranberry sauce. So sorry, Lyle. I can't get behind that either.
That's all right.
Also, the people that eat ham on Thanksgiving, I love ham. I love a good ham, but no, you barbarian, no. That's no. Now this may be a hot take, guys, but it may not be the best. It may not be your favorite. But what makes or breaks a Thanksgiving dish, like what you can have your plate loaded with 6 or 7 things. If I don't have a good roll, it's over. It's
Like
over.
like a Hawaiian roll? Like, does that count as
Like
a
if
good
it's like a
roll?
Hawaiian, just some sort of good roll. Because if you got a bad roll, the meal's a bust. It's a bust. You got to have a good roll. I'm also a degenerate for good mac and cheese. You got to load that up there. But also, Brady, I'm with you. I like to mix my stuff together. So I'll mix the turkey, the gravy, the mashed potatoes, the mac and cheese. I mix
bites
that all
of
together.
everything. It's so good.
Yeah. I
was gonna say mixing that stuff is fine, but I thought you were asking, like, do you mix cranberry sauce?
Yeah, do you mix your apple pie with your mashed potatoes?
Yeah, see, that's not gonna work. But like turkey and mashed potatoes, or like stuffing and mashed potatoes, that's fine.
Yeah, I will say that's a good point. Green bean casserole is pretty good. Occasionally, I've seen like a cream spinach. All right, it's fine. I will say, since we do eat later, we have different food throughout the day. So like the first thing you guys eat during the day is probably like your meal, right? We'll do or an appetizer. We'll like for the first game, which starts at I think 1:00. We'll make some food. We'll do some stuff. So I think I'm making like pigs in a blankets, like take crescent rolls and hot dogs and some stuff like that, and some good snacks throughout the day, and then go to the dinner at the end. So you get a little bit of everything during the day.
There we go.
I never get over that these games on the East Coast don't start till 1:00. Like, I feel
It's
like that would
weird.
just be so miserable to have to wait around till 1:00 in the afternoon to start watching football.
Right. It's like you get up and all of a sudden at 10 a.m. you got games on.
Exactly.
I'm sorry,
It's like all day.
12:30. 12:30 is when it starts this year.
Oh yeah, so 9:30, even better for us. Yeah. I don't know how people do it. Or again, like it's just weird. Like thinking about college game day on the East Coast, like when Lee Corso's putting his headgear on, that's like at 11:55 a.m. Like that's weird.
I know. Also, man, what an opening game. I guess it just got announced that Jared Goff's going to play, but the fact we were this close to getting Tim Boyle versus Andy Dalton is amazing.
I'll let you go, Brady, while I look this up.
Mason and I every year, we always do like, hey, we play Madden, like in the morning, we'll play a few games of Madden, we'll play NCAA, And he's like, hey, we got to play this year. And I said, don't worry, we can play from 12:30 on because I don't want to watch that first game.
Tim Boyle. I will leave this on this note.
Oh my God, I know what you're going to say.
No player in football history has finessed the system more than Tim Boyle. So, guys, Tim Boyle, I don't know if you guys know this. He played He played his collegiate ball at Connecticut from 2013 through 2015. Brady, would you like to guess how many touchdown passes he threw in the 19 career games he played for Connecticut?
I'm going to say 6.
He threw 1 touchdown pass and had 13 interceptions in his career at Connecticut. And that somehow thought, you know what? This guy is an NFL caliber quarterback. Well, he's appeared in 12 career NFL games. Going back, I don't know, I guess 2019 was when he made his debut. And this guy has no touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. So if you were to combine the collegiate level and the pro level, this guy has thrown 1 touchdown pass with 15 interceptions, and he's an NFL backup quarterback.
I think you left out the part because I'm pretty sure he transferred to Northern Kentucky to quote unquote get his career on track after he left UConn. And then the guy had a career year where he threw 11 touchdowns and like 13 interceptions. And then he got himself to the NFL from that. I believe that's right. I can double check.
It might be. Yeah, that one, it's probably because they're F or Division II or whatever. They're not on Sports Reference, but that sounds about right. So even more interceptions.
I was going to say another guy that just totally fleeced the system, clipboard Jesus, Charlie Whitehurst, doing the same thing, just bouncing around as a backup. But the best backup in NFL history, in my opinion, Jim Sorgi. He was Peyton Manning's backup for like 8 years, and then went to the Giants and was Eli's backup, threw 6 touchdowns in his career.
Guys, Tim Boyle this year is making $2.4 million.
It was awesome. It was Eastern Kentucky, not Northern, but yeah, like $2 million to, yeah, that's amazing.
So I guess the Lions got an upgrade at the quarterback position, considering they don't have to play Tim Boyle tomorrow. But like, are you telling me there's not any other quarterback out there that is slightly better? Like, what?
Amazing.
So there you go, guys. Any parting words before we head out for the Thanksgiving holiday and the amazing slate of weekend college football action?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Hate Week. Happy Thanksgiving. Go Devils.
Give us chaos.
Go Hoosiers.
I want to go Hoosiers. Yeah, hopefully they can get to 3 wins. Hopefully there's chaos. Hopefully there's some good games. And to end this, eat milk, drink cereal. Hello, go Sun Devils. A perfect cap off for the show. So this was a fun one. I very much enjoyed the show. Brady, sorry we went over your I said we'd make it to 6, and well, we went 20 minutes over, but that's okay. For Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klain, it's been Blake Harris from the Chateau in beautiful Monrovia, California. Eat a ton tomorrow. Go ham. Let us know. Send us pictures of your Thanksgiving meals.
No, don't go ham. Go turkey.
Go ahead. Don't go ham. Go turkey. Let's take a photo of your Thanksgiving meal. Tweet at the HH Show _. We'll share some of our best. Spencer, if you're out there, take a photo of Lyle going to town on this cranberry sauce. We all can see what exactly it is that goes down. Brady, enjoy your Thanksgiving dinner. Lyle and I are going to enjoy it. I was going to say we're going to enjoy it before you, but since we're eating around 2 to 3, you'll be joining us at the same time because you're on the stupid East Coast. Thank you to everyone so much for watching and listening. This has been a blast. We'll see you guys potentially next week. If not, eat a ton. Don't go ham. Go turkey. And enjoy your college